Hello, I'm Arif Iqbal, and you're watching WNS News. New details have emerged on the attempted abduction of Hanako Arasaka at the Arasaka-sponsored Dashi Parade. Early accounts first reported that the assailants struck as the parade was in full swing. They overwhelmed and seized control of the Arasaka Heiress's parade platform. Fortunately, Arasaka's security forces, under the personal direction of Yorinobu Arasaka, quickly tracked down the abductors and secured Hanako-sama. Yorinobu-sama has since issued a public statement condemning the perpetrators' deplorable actions and promising swift retribution.
To those who raise a hand against the Arasaka family, I promise you, we will rip the hand off.
Not going in there. If you have that, you fucking want. Still installing.
There's that cream new place. We went there yesterday. Huh. Drawing a blank.
course, the Portal were bad enough to earn themselves a spot amongst the host. Maybe the Connect wasn't as bad as you think it was. No, it was definitely terrible. Fighter Within was a launch title for the Xbox One, and the follow-up to 2010's Fighters Uncaged for the Xbox 360. A game that was also rubbish, though not quite bad enough to place amongst the worst of all time. The game saw players controlling Matt, though we use the word controlling very loosely, a man who joins his local dojo.
I don't know, this is PS2, you stupid fucking bitch.
It's really cool because there's a sense of just dread on the people that live there. A lot of them are resigned to their fate. Some of them have already fled. Some of them have presumably already been overtaken by the lava and they're fucking dead. There's a moment where you can go into a store and you can steal the items that they had because the store is about to be engulfed by lava. It's a weird moral thing, though. So you show up in the store, and there's a chest, and the game gives you an option. Normally you go up to a chest, you just hit the button, and it opens. But in this one, it's like, are you sure that you want to steal? You sure you want to take these items out of the chest? And I said no. I did read online that you are forced to pay back the item later on if you do take it. Because, spoiler, I mean, you turn off some fucking machine, and the lava stops, and not only does the lava stop, but the town goes completely back to normal. I know, what the fuck sense does that make? But anyway, I was really impressed by this lava segment. It's a really cool level.
Old Spice Men's Styling Pomade offers a medium...
Dear James Rolfe, I've enjoyed your work for the last 14 years, and it's time to retire the angry video game nerd.
At some point, when you create yourself to make it, you're going to have to either let that creation go and take a chance on being loved or hated for who you really are, or you're going to have to kill who you really are and fall into your grave grasping onto a character who you never were. I was like, wow, that is just an amazing quote.
How does that reflect you as the angry video game nerd?
Oh, it makes me think about it a lot, but it makes me think of like with a lot of clarity, just well, I think I like this. I think I'm okay with this. Like, it kind of just makes you feel like, you know, it's cool to have a character that people know, but it raises the question, makes you think about it. You know, like sometimes you got to make a choice at some point where you got to be yourself or be the character.
End the AVGN. It's gotten stale. You've been eclipsed by funnier, more informative, and frankly better critiquers in the YouTube gaming space. You've never been a serious gamer. When you get down to it, you're a gaming poser. 14 years ago, you were the only one making competent, funny content about old video games. You were all we had, and to your credit, you filled the niche far better than anyone else could. In 2020, everybody's a YouTuber. Everybody makes content, and a large part of that is because of you. When I called you a poser, I don't mean it as an insult. There's nothing wrong with not being a gamer. I know that you're a film guy first, that's your thing. Video games in such a distant second place, that you're far from the authority the prestige your platform would suggest. You've been living a lie, that you're a hardcore gamer. Ask yourself, if you have a free moment on a given day, do you play video games? Or do you do literally anything else? You've built up a house of cards around yourself revolving around your knowledge of video games. Given the circumstances, you did what most people would do. You played along with the lie, and I can't blame you. Do you want to know how I know you're not a real gamer? It's the little things. When you take a magnifying glass and really examine what you say, what happens. It's obvious. Mike had to buy you a Nintendo Switch. You weren't interested enough to just get one on your own. James, you had to ask Mike if Dark Souls, the most influential, the game that shaped the last decade of modern game design sensibilities, you had to ask him if that was a side-scroller.
Well, you know what you want to play, man. Basically, you probably want to play Dark Souls because it's basically a lot of people compare it to Zelda 2, but it's like, but it has like realistic graphics. Yeah, and Zelda 2 is just hard. And
So it's side-scrolling, but it has realistic graphics?
no, it's not.
And all that's fine. You don't have to be the biggest gamer in the world. 10 years ago, you did enough research and kept the content retro enough to keep up the facade. But in modern AVGN, these days, it feels like you're reading someone else's thoughts. When I see an AVGN episode about Kingdom Hearts, for example, as someone who's followed your work religiously, I know for a fact that you don't know or care about anything to do with Kingdom Hearts. Hell, I'd believe that you'd never heard of it before the words left your lips. When I watch old AVGN, I see a man lightheartedly having a laugh at the expense of some old games. There are episodes where you can barely stay in character, your doofy grin invading your face on should-be-serious line reads. There's nothing like that in newer AVGN. No smirks. It's as if the joy has been sucked clean out of your face. I don't see a man making fun of bad video games. I see another outclassed boy wearing a jean jacket, punching above his weight. I see other people's interests using your body as a puppet. Some of the references you'll make in newer episodes, they're not James Rolfe. They're not from your mind palace. I know they're not. It's not so much that you aren't writing every single line. It's that we, the fans, can tell when you're not even involved in the brainstorming sessions. We know when it's not your hands behind the controller. I love your content, James, and I'm still going to watch everything that you put out. But at this point, I do it out of some kind of obligation. Not because I'm naive enough to believe that modern AVGN will entertain me. The sad thing is, I believe this is true for you as well. You're not putting AVGN out to entertain, or because you have anything left to say about video games as a medium. No, you exhausted your gaming vocabulary a long time ago. You put these out because you feel obligated. I don't know if it's financial or spiritual, and I'm not going to speculate. He recently tweeted at Justin Silverman that he, quote, kept AVGN going. That may be true, but at what cost? You're literally just an actor on your own channel. You don't play the games, edit the videos, or write the scripts anymore. Now, if you don't want to write AVGN anymore, honestly, that's fine. Trust me, I understand. I've been there myself. Making videos isn't always easy. But why, in the holy mother of fuck, did you shill it out to Screenwave? I know for certain you could find a more talented group if you tried. Ryan Scott, the owner of Screenwave, first appeared in a Cinemassacre video in 2009. He's not some random businessman you partnered with because you're confident he'll handle your brand with care. He's somebody you've been friends with for a long time. Screenwave Media produces your videos not because they were the most qualified, not even because you think they do a good job, but because they were easy, willing, and available. You didn't look for talent. You told your friend that you were burnt out, and he said that he'd handle it for you. And handle it he has.
It's only a game. Here, have it.
YouTube network.
I don't want this corporate bullshit.
Screenwave Media.
It's shit rock. Stick to the local brew. That's a local brew.
I get it. AVGN gets views either way. No skin off your back, right? It almost doesn't matter how good the product is at this point. People will just line up and watch it. So why put in the effort to find competent editors or witty writers when the people who work at your friend's company will do it on the cheap? And in the short term, you're right. You'll consistently surpass 1 million views. It won't matter much. You'll be able to coast off your legacy and prior body of work for another couple of years at least. Making videos, the AVGN, this has been your thing, your career for what? 12 or 13 years at this point? If your content doesn't change, I guarantee that you're closer to the end than you are to the beginning. You can't last another 13 more years putting out cookie-cutter content. You can only rest on your laurels for so long. What you're making now doesn't inspire. You're not ushering in a new era of fans. Anyone who watches your content today has done so for years. Cut the cord, James. I know it's scary. AVGN has always been your rock, your fallback. You could always bank on it, but it's time to stop. You clearly don't enjoy it. You're falling asleep on episodes of James and Mike Mondays. I know that's on hiatus, and if I were you, I'd end that too. Since I'm already talking about Mike, allow me to bring this up. You are aware that he posted his penis on both the Cinemassacre subreddit and the Cinemassacre Twitter account, right? These are real. It's not a hoax. It actually happened. And I don't know if you knew, because you've never made a statement about the incident. I'd like to believe that you're not so ignorant as to what's going on, but at this point, you're so detached from your own work that I have no idea what to believe you know anymore. I'd say more about Mike, but we, the fan base, have mostly forgiven and accepted him. He's the least of your channel's problems right now. Cinemassacre has transformed from your personal brand, a likable guy making jokes about funny things, into this. What am I looking at? Justin's Gengar collection? Cinemassacre LAN party? A paid advertisement for a game that none of your audience could possibly give two shits about? You're not even in these. If I were the company that paid for this video, I'd be pissed. The last two great AVGN episodes.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation like Emma here? You're out for lunch with your work crew, they're all drinking, but...
Emma, you sure you don't want to brew?
You've got a big meeting to prep for. But then, your friend offers you an athletic, a non-alcoholic beer. You don't really even want to try it, but you give it a shot. You take a sip and think...
Oh, wow. That's actually really good.
So, you have one back at the office, too.
You're being ready for tomorrow. Oh, yes.
And you're ready to crush your meeting. Give Athletic Brewing a shot. Award-winning, non-alcoholic beer that's fit for all times.
A while, you'll get inspired and show us that you indeed still have it. But here's the dirty little secret about
those
two
$14
videos.
controller.
Neither
That was a
one of
PS4.
them needed the nerd character to work. They're not great because you're going all classic
okay,
nerd on them. They're not great because of the poop jokes. These episodes are great because they're honest, personal looks, heartfelt reviews of interesting games, from a perspective that brought a new angle to each of them. The AVGN didn't make these episodes work. James Rolfe did.
Yeah,
strip away the facade. If you're inspired to review something, you can still put out amazing game reviews.
Okay.
But that's a big if. The thing is that it proves that your video game
It was like
content
a
has
red
outgrown
controller
the
with
need for the
spots
nerd.
on
The
it,
guy in these
camouflage
videos
that
is
it
not
was
the same
25
guy
or
that
6
shat
times before
on an
it's
Atari Jaguar.
I don't know if
He's
they
not
have
the
it
same
at
character that would
Walmart.
rather play with dog turds. You've trapped yourself in a box with this character, James. One that you can't stand living inside of. So you rent out space to these frauds at Screenwave. I'm sure they're nice, and they can write an episode of AVGN, but they can't write you, James. You're the reason we loved AVGN. It was never the poop jokes. The character got our attention, but we stayed for you. Cinemassacre isn't Kieran. It's not Tony from Hack the Movies. It's not Justin or Ryan or even Mike. They have their own channels. People come to Cinemassacre for you.
Hi, I just want to give you a little update. First of all, I hope you're all doing okay during these difficult times. And whatever you may be going through, I hope the videos give you a little entertainment and joy, as many have messaged me saying that they have. I get lots of messages from people, many who are essential workers, telling me how the videos have helped out. And I appreciate that very much. That helps me keep motivated. So thank you. Thank you all. We're still doing AVGN. That's not changing. The more epic episodes have been postponed. So for the time being, I hope you understand that they're more back to basics.
If only that were true, James. I speak for most, if not every fan, when I say that we'd rather have 1 or 2 episodes a year if it meant that AVGN went back to basics. We'd rather have less content if the trade-off is that you made it instead of what we have now. I'm rooting for you. Always have, and probably always will. But I had to get some harsh truths off my chest. That book you're working on, that's a day one buy. I'll be at the front of the line. I don't want to see someone putting out work that clearly isn't their best. Either dig yourself out of this rut, or hang up the shirt. The way people talk about you these days, whenever AVGN comes up in conversation, it's always in the past tense. People talk about you like you live in a retirement home. Like you're a dog that's about to kick it. He's so sharp, 16 years, and he's still going strong. It's pathetic. Is that how you want people to talk about you? Like your best days are behind you? You're only 40 years old, James. You still have half of your life left to live. Do you want to forever be known as the guy who wore out being angry at old games on the internet for years after it was funny? You say it yourself constantly.
First of all, I don't have time. And second, because honestly, I just don't have the time. Time sucks. Nobody likes time.
Exactly.
I can't afford to sacrifice the amount of time it takes to make an entire movie from start to finish. That's too much of an investment for me right now. I'm facing reality. There doesn't exist enough time in the year to keep doing a full 31 review marathon. And the simple reason is because I don't have time. Fuck, 5:40 anyway. Alright, shit.
Let's break it.
Alright. Well, anyway, that's it. We just ran out of time.
You only get so much time. If AVGN isn't your passion, why do you do it? You don't need AVGN, James. Start a Patreon. Make the things you want to. You've got the population of a small nation behind you. Trust me, you're good enough. You have more than enough talent to make it on your own. You don't need Screenwave. You don't need Justin, or Tony, or Ryan. All you need is passion. So follow your affections and ditch the AVGN. I am Jason Graves. Never trust anyone who needs a haircut. Psst, come here. I'm about to show you something. A few of you may have seen this before. Maybe you Googled the name of the game and my video came up. But I'm guessing most of you haven't. So take it in, because you only see it for the first time once.
Oh, this is your next RPG?
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. A ninja RPG?
Just hold on until you...
Alright, sorry. Okay. Okay, so far so good. You know, it's a style.
Look at this shit.
It's a takeaway.
No,
They're just figuring out graphics back then.
Look at the run button.
Yeah, that's a ninja run. It's right out of Naruto.
I first turned it on, and I'm like, wow, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah, that run's pretty bad. But you know, hey, at least it's there.
Yo, yeah.
They could have just as easily let you slow walk through the entire game. Battle screen, very bad. Why is there so much space? Why is it off center? There's so much space behind it.
Looking at this game for the first time is like being assaulted. It's ugly. The sounds range from innocuous to the worst shrills you've ever heard your Super Nintendo make. Once you get over it, you'll find a deep and engrossing story where Superman returns and needs to fight in an intergalactic tournament to save his universe from being erased by Pickle Rick. Okay, that's a lie. It's actually a modernist piece about the struggle Japanese immigrants had fitting in with the post-slavery Brazilian culture of the gay 90s. Okay, I could tell you anything happens here, because we've reached the bottom of popularity. Nobody's played this. You go on GameFAQs, they don't even have a walkthrough listed. If a tree falls in the woods and nobody is around to hear it, did the game ever exist at all? In this case it does, because I beat it. And it was perfectly adequate, albeit a bit unfocused. Not to say that nobody's heard of it. SNESdrunk made a video, though I can tell he didn't get extraordinarily far. There's a Brazilian guy named Elevskas on YouTube who speedran it, which is the video I used for a guide when I got stuck. The rest of the world's not missing out on much. It's a game based on Japanese history. Real-life person of note, Oda Nobunaga, survives a coup on his territory. In real life he dies, but this game plays out in a what-if scenario where he doesn't. It's the Yang to Uncharted Waters yin. They're both by Koei. Historical, specific period pieces that are a little grisly. The difference being Uncharted Waters is one thing ground into a fine sheen. All you really do is sail around buying and selling things. And Indo's complexion is made up of a few things, but there evidently wasn't as much affection poured into this one. It's too many concepts handled poorly. For starters, it feels like they failed to balance this game at all. In terms of difficulty, abilities, the risk-reward relationship of taking action, it doesn't feel thought through. The EXP and gold doled out by defeating enemies aren't quite proportional to their difficulty. There were a few times when I'm busting my balls spending 10 minutes on a random encounter that I'm ideally too under-leveled to handle, and I get less EXP from that battle than the enemies I should be fighting. Despite taking many breaks to grind, you always feel weak. There's nothing like combating someone, only to have the brand new sword you spend an hour farming to get do 2 damage. None of the long-range weapons are worth your time, by the way. If you're going to attack someone from a distance, magic would be much better served. Now's as good a time as any to explain the battle system. It's traditionally turn-based with a small environmentally based twist. Imagine there's a chessboard of hexagons on this battle screen. If you're on an adjacent square, you can attack with the sword. If you're not, you need to rely on bows, pistols, or magic. Here's a weird quirk. There's a couple restoring tiles tucked inside the dungeons, but they don't completely restore your health. They only do 30 HP at a time. Why? You can step on it as many times as you want. It's not like you're limited to one use. Why doesn't it just give you all your health back? It's like when they were coding it, they had a problem getting it to give you all your health. Or maybe whoever was doing it got lazy and didn't want to program a check for how much health the player needs to fill up. So they just set up a default value of 30. The D-pad cancels dialogue boxes, which normally isn't a big deal, but sometimes, as in whenever the game feels like it, it has a narrator who throws unexpected crap up on the screen. Like here, what did it say? When you're in a town, it was nice of them to mark the buildings. The green door is the item store, red is the armory, lantern to the right, there's the tea house, and the inn is the word inn written on the door. They've got all these cute little markers you play most of the time. Some places had to be rebels. This is a hard game to keep all your nouns straight. They throw so many Japanese terms at you that they start to blend together. Weapon names, town names, people, it's all a mush. At least this game's nice with the random battles. They got that part right. It's perfect. Not too many, not too few. The win condition, from what I could gather, was just to kill Nobunaga. He's in the center of Japan, and it seems like you could just walk up and challenge him whenever. Turns out I was wrong, but I didn't figure that out until about 19 hours in, so we'll get to that later. Meanwhile, this NPC claims that there are 18 different dungeons scattered across Japan. I figured it would be a good idea to do at least a lion's share of them before attempting the endgame. Outside of most of the dungeons, there are these elders who give you magic spells in exchange for items that you'll find in said dungeons. With magic generally being more useful than melee, it seemed like a good idea to do as many of these as I could find. I'm pretty sure you can do them in any order, but the level curve of the game is so strict that I always felt under-leveled in the areas the game expected me to be in, let alone trying to sequence break. And that's with me going out of my way to grind after every scenario. It wasn't until I figured out ways to cheese the AI, started using the more underhanded ways of playing, that I felt truly powerful. Eventually you reach a point where even if you have the best equipment available in the game, you won't be doing hardly any damage to even the most innocuous of random encounters. So you're forced to rely on magic. The problem this poses is that there's no consistent way to replenish your NP if you're not in a town. You're fighting an uphill battle, that is, until you discover two secrets. First, that some weapons double as a usable item that casts spells without a cost. The multi-blade in particular casts Gale, capable of carrying you through the entire game. The second being that every single enemy, and I mean every enemy, including boss fights, can be put to sleep. The status in this game works like it does in Pokemon Generation 1, meaning that they can't wake up and attack in the same turn. As long as you keep your enemy asleep, they're incapable of moving. Once you discover this, the game goes from being unfairly brutal and grind-heavy to a fucking joke. There might be 18 dungeons. That's what the game claims anyway. But outside of Nobunaga's castle, I only encountered 4 bosses. Most of them don't have anything at the end. Winning these is all about abusing the AI. Before I discovered the sleep trick, I was using the buff technique. Bosses have a tendency to spend their time debuffing you every time you buff yourself, and it doesn't matter how small your advantage would be. I'd have one party member cast a speed increasing spell, and the enemy would in turn spend his time undoing our magic. This leaves my other 2 party members free to attack. Repeat this until they're dead. You can also go Super Saiyan. Your character turns gold and everything, but it's not generally a great idea to use it against bosses, unless you have them sleep locked, of course, because they can undo that too. Here's a scenario involving one of those 4 boss fights that doesn't make sense. A guy goes missing inside a gold mine. It collapses, and nobody in town can find him dead or alive. You're recruited to go help, and you do. You find him, he's dead, and you fight his ghost. When it's over, the guys from town show up, act like they found a fortune, cart off a giant nugget of gold, and you're teleported outside the dungeon. It's the only time they teleport you out. Normally you need to walk or use magic. Are we just forgetting about the guy now? They don't give a shit? Nobody? The elder in town gives you a couple thousand gold instead of a magic ability. 2,000 gold is nothing in this game, by the way. And doing this quest is only worth it, and then it puts you further up the level curve. The font can be hard to read, and the inventory system is as crummy as they come. You can only hold a certain number of items, and anything that's equipped counts against your total. It's the kind of game where each individual party member has their own inventory. The way the game handles your travel team is a neat idea. There are dozens of wandering NPCs traveling around Japan that you're able to recruit. They each vary in skills, abilities, and they never stay in one place. There's a friendship system. If you're cordial enough, you can ask them to join your party. But be careful because the people you align with affect your relationships with other NPCs. If your party has someone that another NPC doesn't like, they'll become hostile. It's a neat idea, having people that can either be friendly or not depending on your alignment. You'll get attacked quite a bit, but everyone's level scales to yours, which is good in a way because you'll never get slaughtered without warning this way. But it also makes the encounters too easy because it's 3 against 1. Once you get a full party, you're not losing any of these. They just become a formality. You save your game at the inns, but they're prime real estate for your enemies. A lot of the person-to-person interaction takes place here. When starting out, it takes a great deal of effort to convince anybody to join your ranks, but as you go, you'll be beating them away with a stick. Aside from the random NPCs, there are 2 instances where a special character asks to join in a scripted segment. I was pissed off the first time it happened because I wasn't ready. I had just beat a dungeon, gotten the item the elder had requested, and this girl comes up, says she's a childhood friend, and requests to join. Who am I to say no? She might be awesome. But as soon as you say yes, you instantly are required to discard one of the ones you already have. It doesn't let you back out. No inventory management, no nothing. You can't do anything. All the money I had just invested, blam, gone. All the items he had been carrying, never coming back. To make matters worse, she sucks. Terrible. She's an identical clone of you, but worse. You'll have the same equipment, same level, Her attacks will do 1, and yours will do 20. Pathetic. I almost get why you wouldn't want this other person to just be as good as you, so making them less powerful physically or in one aspect is fine, but they need to compensate somewhere else. She needs to be a better spellcaster. Give her another unique ability. Do something to make her worthwhile, because just being a copy of you, the main character, and unable to attack sucks. While you're doing your own thing, in the background, different factions of Japan are playing a game of Risk. Remember at the top when I proclaimed this game had too many concepts and not enough sheen? This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. On top of being traditionally turn-based, it's got strategy game elements within that structure. It's got social game aspects with the party recruiting and alignment system. And to top it all off, you've got these warring sub-nations fighting for control of Japan. Nobunaga controls the red area in the middle, and he'll slowly take over more land the longer you take to get through the game. I'm assuming that if he conquers everything, you lose, but the amount of time that would have to take has to be gargantuan, because these people move slow. I ignored this for most of the playtime, until you get to the end and realize that you can't get into Nobunaga's castle. I was under the impression that I could just walk in there and try to fight him whenever. My plan was to get all the spells from the elders and do just that. But as I established earlier, I was wrong. What you really have to do is befriend a Dynamo, which is the leader of one of these segments you see here, convince them to battle Nobunaga, and conquer enough land until you get into the center here. This is when I first looked to the internet for help. I went to GameFAQs first, but it's established there was nothing there. I was able to find a written guide somewhere else, but it wasn't entirely helpful, so I turned to YouTube. That's when I found the speedrun, looked at his strategy, and where I learned how useful putting enemies to sleep is. He went into a town, sabotaged it around a dozen times, gave some expensive items to the ruler of this patch of land right here, and then invaded his way west. The whole operation took him 15 minutes. No big deal, right? I try to do the exact same thing, except it doesn't work. In my game, he refuses to attack. No matter how many times I burn Nobunaga's shit down, no matter how many times I ask, he refuses to do it. It turns out, I discovered, that it has to do with how many generals the territory has. If it only has one, they can't invade anyone. So I try other dynamos. The blue territory won't attack either. Not enough generals. I have no idea how to recruit new generals, how a territory acquires them, or anything about how they work. So I went west and talked to the Plaid territory over here. They have generals, and I convinced them into invading. But when the time came, he always canceled, and I couldn't figure out why. And you know what? I still don't know why. Maybe it's because he didn't think his sphere of influence was powerful enough, or maybe he didn't think his army was good enough. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter how often I sabotaged the territory, he just wouldn't do it. Every time, he would cancel. So I went, and I tried to invade smaller sects. And it worked. He didn't cancel those. Eventually, we had a massive empire, and he was keen to start conquering Nobunaga's land. That is until we got one territory away, and he fucking stopped. Refused to attack. Just wouldn't do it. Canceled every time. I was fed up. Out of desperation, I went back east and asked my old friends. And guess what? Through some force of magic, he has generals now. And it fucking worked. He could actually invade, and he didn't fucking cancel. He did it. So the strategy that worked was the strategy in the speedrun. It just didn't work until I already spent 7 hours doing other crap. Yeah, 7 hours for something that should have taken 15 minutes. Alright, whatever. I just wanted to be done at that point. This game desperately needs a time skip button. It has a true-to-life in-game calendar. For some reason, you can only ask a Dynamo to invade in the first half, 15 days of a month, and the invasions only occur on the last day. So this part of the game devolved into asking the Dynamo to invade, going to the menu, hitting wait 30 times, just to have him say no and cancel the invasion. On the off chance they actually agree, the game turns into fucking Fire Emblem. Where did this come from? There's another style mixed in here? It's just another thing that this game is attempting to juggle, and it's the weakest of the bunch. These are insignificant. They're a waste of space. For some reason, you're the only one who can use magic, and as a result, nobody can challenge you. You're not going to lose. When making this, they should have just realized that this whole chunk was a sunk cost. The regular battle system is flawed, but it's leaps and bounds ahead of this. They should have just built on that, because this whole invasion angle is not fit to be in the final product. While I was ignoring all this, playing it like a traditional JRPG, I was having a good time. But then after getting involved with all this, I started to dread this game. That's a shame, because despite its embarrassingly gruff appearance, Ninja Way the Ninja is not horrible. I didn't hate it. Not at all. But the next game is another story. I beat it last night. That is the night before when I'm writing this script, not the night before when I'm reading it. Hell, you're probably not going to see this for another 2 weeks. But let me tell you about this one. It's another ninja game. It's called Super Ninja Boy. If there's anything I hated, anything in the whole series that I've hated so far, it's that one. Super Ninja Boy sucks. I am Jason Graves, and Uncharted Waters is capitalism, the video game. Or maybe it's supposed to be mercantilism because it takes place in the 1500s. But there aren't any taxes or tariffs, so my statement stands. If it looks like an NES game to you, that's because it was. 2 years after the original, it was remastered into this. Uncharted Waters is 15 minutes of content stretched into infinity. You can play it for less than an hour, see everything it has to offer, turn your nose in disgust, or you can let yourself become consumed by the open ocean, the unvetted, untaxed, uninterrupted joy of buying and selling and sailing, the thrill of ripping people off, the heartbreak of starving to death because you spent all your gold on clothes and nobody wants to buy fucking clothes, so you can't afford to feed your team's families. I consider this a 1%er game, not because you need to be rich to enjoy it, but because 99% of gamers will take one passing glance and then sprint away like a female from this YouTube channel. I understand, I really do. It's oblique, has ostensibly one gameplay loop that you get the full effect of within moments. For most people, it'll miss the mark. For some, so wildly that your cruise ship won't even feel a splash. But if it hits, wow, it is one gameplay loop, but what a loop it is. If I didn't have anything else to do, this could be my forever game. If you're trapped on a desert island with one amusement, for some people, this could be your everything. And I'd understand completely. It's a real contender because it can last forever. If you really like weird tedium, if you've previously gotten a lot out of that truck driving game, or farm simulator, this is the kind of thing that can take over your life. Let's pull back the curtain and throw some numbers at you. It took me 32 hours, 17 minutes to beat this game. I get my playtime stats by recording everything that I do, and then adding up the total video time of all the play sessions after I'm done. 32 hours is normal, but let me tell you what's not. When I do these videos, after playing the game, I take all my footage, and then I edit them down into what I like to call the highlight reel. I then use the footage from said highlight reel to construct my review. It makes certain footage easier to find when I need it, and it gives me another chance to take notes or catch something that I might have missed while I was playing the game. Let's look at a few other videos I've done to give you a frame of reference for what I'm talking about. Out of around 32 hours of Dragon Quest V footage, I kept 5 hours and 8 minutes. Final Fantasy V, another game of around 32 hours, I condensed into 4 hours and 31 minutes. Something smaller, Soul Blazer, 10.5 hours of footage, an hour and 15 minutes of highlights. Uncharted Waters, 32 hours of footage, the highlight reel, 50 minutes. That's a lot of dead weight. It speaks to how little variety there is, but if you think that means that I think the game was boring or bad, then let's hit you with another metric. Since I don't keep the raw footage, I only have one example this time. Final Fantasy V and Uncharted Waters took almost the exact same amount of time to beat.
It's time! It's time!
Now, I'm sure you've heard of the game company Treasure, right? If not, here's the long and short. There were a bunch of Konami employees that got pissed off because they wouldn't let them make the games they wanted to make. So they went off and formed their own company and named it Treasure. But do you know what the first game they ever released was? No, not that one. The next game, the second game they ever released was. No. It was McDonald's Treasureland Adventure. So Ronald McDonald is walking through the woods when he finds a piece of paper. Ronald realizes that naturally it must be part of a treasure map. No pun intended, or maybe pun was intended. Who really knows for sure? So it's the quest to find the missing parts of the map. And like any good video game world, everything wants to kill you. Dwarves, water, flying marble zone monsters, clowns, ballerina honeys, walking pair of lips with a mouth. It's insanity, and I give them props for not being generic. So what do? Well, you walk from left to right shooting magic sparkles. You can also latch onto these hooks. This is very important, so don't ignore it. So like every other game, you're trying to get to the end of the level, but some of these enemies are crafty. Just in the first stage alone, these turtles retreat into their shells when hit, the dwarves summon clouds that thunder lightning down upon our mascot friend. The boss monsters all have patterns you'll have to learn and react to, and despite it being baby-ass kids looking, you will have to earn your ending.
Hey there, can I get one number one, please? Okay. Sprite? You have a good one.
So all this shit at the bottom of the screen, well, the game constantly feels the need to remind me how big a normie I am. The jewels represent your life. You start with 3, but collect upgrades along the way. Most of the monsters take away 2, but you've also got these silver and gold rings. I have absolutely no idea what the hell they do, but I keep collecting and buying them anyway. Oh yeah, there's a shop in pretty much every stage where you can buy life, silver and gold rings, and other crap that I usually don't have enough money for. What takes this game from a forgettable B- into underrated gem territory are the levels and the consistency between them. Before Sonic 3 copied their fast food ass, McDonald's connected all of their stages, either naturally or with short cutscenes. In the first few stages, the background gradually gets darker until it's finally nighttime. Then you go up a big waterfall and into this cave with eyes. Or how you jump across the ocean until you get onto a big pirate ship, only for it to be shot down, and the next stage takes place in the sunken ship. Or my personal favorite, when you're on top of a train, and a hush falls over the screen. And then you're jumping across ballerina honeys while Swan Lake plays in the background.
It's for the PlayStation. It's a red controller. It's horsey down down. PlayStation 4. K2 Drive. about the controller. If they just get it, they don't have it. Don't get anything.
So majestic. So tranquil. In order to beat the Karate Kid, you must be one with the Karate Kid. Wax. Wax. Anyway, we're playing Karate Kid today. Live commentary for this video.
Hello? Yeah, it's for PS4. It's also a platform. They don't have any of those controllers discounted marked for $30 or less.
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Well, advanced is right. For the time, it's a pretty complicated game.
Whenever Dungeons and Dragons comes up in this series, I always feel out of my depth trying to talk about it. I don't know anything about the stats, I don't know the classes, I don't really know much about how the game works, but this is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Eye of the Beholder, a legendary PC game with a few contemporary home ports. There's this one, and it's also on the Sega CD with full voice acting.
We, the Lords of Waterdeep, have gathered to purge our city of an ancient evil. Give call to the heroes of the land, and let us choose our champions.
Ordinarily, I'll emulate or use the SNES Mini, though this time I made a decision to play on an actual Super Nintendo. By clicking on a few web pages and having these abstract numbers in my bank account diminish, I was able to procure one Hyperkin composite to HDMI cable. It has some mixed reviews online, and Hyperkin is infamous for their questionable quality control. Perhaps stoningly, it seemed to hold up fine over the course of my playthrough. It is the footage you are looking at right now, so if this looks acceptable enough for you, this could be an HDMI option for your Super Nintendo. Going forward, maybe I'll play more of these on real hardware. It's something that I'd love to do, but for one, buying Super Nintendo games isn't always cheap, and two, it's less secure. There's always a thought in the back of your head that you're gonna lose your saves. Plus, it's easier and looks generally better if you just emulate the game. For this, I wanted to play legit because of this. Eye of the Beholder is compatible with the SNES mouse. Yeah, you can actually use this thing with more than Mario Paint. There's nothing like using a crappy early 90s mouse to play a gimped edition of a PC classic. Going in, I assumed this would work with your controller in one hand to move, and the mouse would navigate the menus, but nope, this entire game is mouse controlled. It only uses two buttons, left click and right click, and to move, you hit the arrow keys on screen. The game starts after a brief cutscene creating a merry band of adventurers. There are different races, classes, that meme chart, which didn't appear to factor into anything. Rolling for stats, and of course the most important element are character portraits. Since I've never played Dungeons & Dragons, I didn't absolutely, or even partially, know what I was doing regarding stats, so I simply picked whatever looked fabulous. The idea of selecting 4 physical fighters, then proceeding to spend an entire video complaining about this fact, was endlessly amusing to me. So my initial party consisted of 3 fighters and 1 thief. Sadly, these developments would not provide any funny moments because, as I found out, this is not a challenging video game. No magic, no problems. Eye of the Beholder is a first-person dungeon crawler with real-time combat. In fact, it looks incredibly familiar. Yeah, I've seen this exact screen before. It's Dungeon Master. They're the same game. You're in a colossal labyrinth. There's no stores, no currency, no towns, no other characters or people to find. Or wait a second, what's this? Wow. Once in a while, you do stumble across other beings down here. Stammering about, I came across 3 recruitable party members and multiple more NPCs. Eye of the Beholder's world isn't exactly what I'd call brimming with life. Contrastingly, these small encounters go a long way. Doubly so because I was not expecting them. Eye of the Beholder replaces Dungeon Master as far as I'm concerned. There is no reason for anyone to play SNES Dungeon Master when this exists. It's blazing in comparison. You can almost smell melting plastic while you're running Dungeon Master. It feels like your Super Nintendo is air frying. It's going to melt your system. Sometimes the action seized up so much, there would be a multi-second delay between your inputs and results on screen. Not so here. Eye of the Beholder is a nice riding lawnmower, whereas Dungeon Master is attempting to cut grass with a dead goat. It took me 9 hours, 26 minutes to beat Eye of the Beholder. Dungeon Master, if you recall, was 28.53, and that's not because the latter is much larger or more complex. Honestly, they seem to be almost the same. That's simply how much faster Eye of the Beholder is. You'll click your mouse, hit a button, and boom, everything happens instantly. My opinion on Dungeon Master Distilled was basically that it's a simple game, that it's worthy of being played, only that the Super Nintendo was not capable of pulling off such an ambitious 3D PC port. I was wrong. This game is the proof. Capcom were masters of the craft, and were able to not only cram this entire game onto the Super Nintendo, but amazingly kept it somewhat respectable. This doesn't get a recommendation with an asterisk. Eye of the Beholder on the Super Nintendo came to play. It's big, it's beautiful, and you wouldn't even feel like you're being denied anything playing this version. They managed to make a PC port not feel like it's a PC game being shoehorned onto something it has no business being on. And that's a miracle. One of the most impressive feats I've covered. Battles are swift, never lasting noticeably long, which is exceptional because combat is not terribly complex. Those stats we rolled at the beginning never seemed to matter a whole lot. Neither did my weapons. Sometimes my characters would be more effective with their fists, even late game. Fighting usually boils down to hacking away, occasionally trying to dodge. It's not exactly Fire Emblem tactically. Engaging with monsters on the 2nd level feels the same as the ones on the 12th. Again, I didn't even bother using magic, and still never felt threatened. Hitting things wildly seemed to do the trick, though battling isn't exactly supposed to be the highlight, is it? Exploration rules the day in these first-person dungeon crawlers, and Eye of the Beholder is no exception. My favorite mechanic are these portals that reward thorough exploration. This type of game has many secrets, and there are an abundance of optional areas. A game like this could have struggled to provide incentive for a player to explore. Once a player finds the stairs on a given level, most of the time there's no reason to not go down them and never look back. There is a plethora of puzzles that you can handily ignore. Some of them I did, yet others I solved. There's this interconnecting hub of portals allowing you to easily teleport around the entire game world. Moreover, each of them requires a different, special, one-of-a-kind key item to activate. The more you explore, the more of these items you find. The more you find, the more portals you can activate, and each portal makes navigating theoretically easier. For example, my party did not have any magic whatsoever. Attacking spells, as mentioned earlier, were no immense loss, though not being able to heal status effects was by far the most annoying thing I had to begrudgingly tolerate. Luckily for me, there is exactly one NPC that will gladly heal any and all status. Without him, poison would have been a lethargic death sentence, requiring a restart every time I'm inflicted. Without this portal system, backtracking all the way to him would not have been viable. Consequently, because I could activate the one near him, I was rarely more than a 5-minute walk away. Eye of the Beholder is trickier than Dungeon Master. More traps, more hidden rooms. It wouldn't surprise me if I didn't discover half the game. You can save anywhere at any time. Lord knows I did. Our final boss is a giant eye. Get it? Eye of the Beholder? While you're looking at the titular eye, what do you expect? He's even on the front cover. After you win, no credits, an abbreviated cutscene, then we button up with a firm handshake and a job well done. Brief episode here, so until next time, never trust anyone who needs a haircut. Goodbye. This video is brought to you by Mountain Dew Spark.
Performance and efficiency in harmony. Engineering meticulously crafted for responsiveness, exhilaration, and confidence. The Mazda CX-90 plug-in hybrid.
Is it?
I'm asking for a simple favor.
Oh, okay. They don't have it at GameStop. Can end up doing that. Yeah. Okay.
Get up. We gotta go.
Okay. You're at the Walmart on 75th or something?
I'm gonna find them.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh, okay. Okay.
You guys don't realize what you got yourselves into. This will not bring your family back, Sam.